Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're literally strapping in for the ultimate medieval road trip. Written between 1387 and 1400, Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales isn't just some dusty old English poem you're forced to read. It's a vibrant, breathing snapshot of 14th century society. We're going to use the general prologue today to unlock how people actually lived, worked, and, schemed back then.
Here's the roadmap for our journey. We'll kick things off with a medieval road trip, look at the noble and ideal characters, call out the corrupt holy men, check out the rising middle class, and finally wrap up with the host game. Let's get right into it.
So, picture this. Our story kicks off at the Tabard Inn down in Southwark, London. It's springtime. You know that feeling when the weather warms up, people feel spiritually refreshed, and suddenly everyone gets the urge to travel? Well, our narrator, who is basically Chaucer himself, is staying at this inn when he meets 29 complete strangers, and they're all gathering to travel together on a pilgrimage to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury.
Now, before we actually meet these pilgrims, it really helps to understand how Chaucer builds this whole masterpiece. The general prologue operates in three pretty distinct parts. It opens with this beautifully poetic description of spring, transitions into the meeting of the 29 pilgrims at the inn, and then just launches into these incredibly detailed character sketches. Chaucer is introducing people from literally all walks of life, giving us an unprecedented, totally unfiltered look into medieval England.
Section 1. The Noble and Ideal. Those who do their duty.
This first grouping brilliantly illustrates the contrast even within the absolute highest ranks. Take the knight, for example. He's a professional soldier, battle-hardened, who's fought bravely in over 15 battles for honor and Christianity. He's basically the absolute ideal of medieval chivalry, even wearing a plain, dark tunic that's actually stained by his armor. But then contrast him with his son, the squire. He's about 20 years old, rocking pressed curly hair and this short, trendy, super stylish gown. He sings, he dances, he plays the flute. I mean, he's seen a little bit of battle, sure, but mostly just to impress the ladies. He's essentially a medieval knight-in-training lover boy. Now, moving from the nobility all the way down to the working and religious classes, we find two more purely ideal characters, the parson and his brother, the plowman. The parson is a poor parish priest who, and this is rare in this book, actually practices what he preaches. He walks on foot in terrible weather just to help the poor. His brother, the plowman, is a manual laborer who literally shovels manure all day. He's poor in wealth, but incredibly rich in virtue. Together, they prove that true goodness in Chaucer's eyes depends entirely on moral integrity and hard work, not the size of your bank account. Actually, the parson lives by this one incredibly powerful motto. If gold rusts, what shall iron do? It's a brilliant metaphor. The priest is the gold and the common people are the iron. He's basically asking, if a holy man is corrupt and dirty, how could you possibly expect ordinary, everyday folks to stay clean? It's a profound, really heavy standard to hold himself to. Moving on to Section 2, The Corrupt Holy Men, Chaucer's sharpest satire. To really get Chaucer's satire here, you've got to see just how ridiculously far the medieval church had strayed from its own rules. Monks are supposed to pray and live in poverty, right? Well, our monk is fat, loves hunting, and wears fine fur. The friar took a vow to beg for the poor. Instead, he spends his time seducing women and taking bribes. The summoner is supposed to enforce religious law, but he just blackmails sinners and is a raging drunk. And the pardoner, a guy meant to absolve sins piously, is actually a master manipulator selling totally fake relics. It's wild.
Let's zoom in on a couple of these figures. We've got the elegant prioress, Madame Eglantine, and our worldly monk. The prioress acts way more like a noble princess than a nun. She speaks this provincial, kind of fake fancy French, focuses entirely on her dainty table manners, and overfeeds her pet dogs expensive roasted meat while completely ignoring the actual poor. She even wears a golden brooch engraved with "Love Conquers All." And the monk? He mocks his vows of celibacy and poverty just as blatantly. He wears a gold pin shaped like a love knot and constantly complains that the old monastic rules are just totally outdated.
And then, wow, the summoner and the pardoner. With these two, Chaucer goes full grotesque, using their terrifying outward appearances to symbolize their deep inner spiritual rot. The summoner's face is quite literally a nightmare. It's covered in pimples and oozing sores, and he absolutely reeks of garlic, onions, and wine. He'll happily let a sinner off the hook for a bribe of wine. His travel buddy, the pardoner, looks just as strange, with these long, stringy yellow hairs that look like rat tails and a high, effeminate voice. They are a perfectly matched, entirely corrupt duo, just preying on the most vulnerable believers.
Which brings us to the ultimate irony of the partner's character. His big catchphrase, the thing he preaches loud and clear, is, "Greed is the root of all evil." But here's the kicker. He admits he preaches this exact phrase for one reason and one reason only: to guilt innocent, poor people into emptying their pockets and giving him their hard-earned money. He is warning them against the very sin that completely drives his own existence. Just absolute hypocrisy.
Section 3. The rising middle class, the new money and rule breakers.
So here, we get a fantastic clash between new money and absolute devotion to learning. The merchant is loud, wearing a wildly expensive beaver hat and multicolored clothes. He literally never stops talking about his profits. But Chaucer lets us in on a little secret. The guy is in massive debt. He is the original fake-it-till-you-make-it hustle culture capitalist. Compare him to the Oxford clerk. The clerk's horse is basically starving to death because every single penny he manages to scrape together goes straight into buying philosophy books.
Next up, the sergeant of the law and the franklin. The sergeant is an extremely high-ranking lawyer. Now, Chaucer praises his knowledge, sure, but he cleverly mocks his self-importance. He notes that the sergeant always seemed a whole lot busier than he actually was. Riding along with him is the franklin, a wealthy landowner who follows the Epicurean philosophy, which basically means he thinks pleasure is the absolute highest goal in life. Chaucer jokes that it practically snows meat and drink inside his house because his table is perpetually loaded with massive feasts. He represents the rural gentry living their absolute best, most comfortable life.
This is where Chaucer uses some incredibly dark humor to describe the working-class professionals. We meet 5 guildsmen. These are skilled tradesmen, showing off brand-new silver-mounted tools just to prove they have the capital to climb the social ladder. And to really flex their wealth, they've hired their own professional cook. Now, the cook is a master chef. He can roast, boil, and fry perfectly. But there is a huge catch. He has a disgusting, oozing ulcer right on his shin. And his signature dish? A creamy white chicken stew called blancmange. Yeah, it's one of Chaucer's grossest yet most memorable jokes.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about one of the most famous characters in all of English literature, the wife of Bath. Her real name is Alison. She is a loudly dressed, gap-toothed clothmaker wearing these striking red stockings. She's unapologetic, she's worldly, and she has been married 5 times. In a highly male-dominated society, she acts as a sort of medieval feminist. She leverages her massive wealth and her extensive worldly experience to challenge church authority on marriage, famously demanding sovereignty over men. She is, without a doubt, an absolute force of nature. Finally, Section 4. The host's storytelling game. Enter Harry Bailey. He's the owner of the Tabard Inn, a large, merry, and incredibly practical businessman. He looks around the room at this massive, diverse group of people and sees a huge opportunity. He proposes a contest to keep everyone entertained on the long, boring ride to Canterbury. The rules are simple. Each pilgrim has to tell 2 stories on the way there and 2 stories on the way back. Harry himself will ride along and be the judge, and the winner? They get a free dinner at his inn, completely paid for by the rest of the group. Think about it. It is brilliant diplomacy, great leadership, and, frankly, an incredible business promotion for his tavern. And this game provides the entire framework for the Canterbury Tales.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Chaucer used these very specific slices of life, from the oozing cook to the flashy squire to the hypocritical pardoner, to brilliantly expose the gap between what people pretend to be and who they actually are. So the real question is, 600 years later, how much has actually changed? Do we still judge people by their outward appearances instead of their inner realities? Thanks for joining me on this journey into the 14th century. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.